And welcome to Kings Park Community Church, everyone. For those of you who are watching online, a special welcome to you. For those of you who've never met me before, my name is Jono, and I'm going to be leading us in some worship first thing. So we're going to start by a newish song. We've sung it once before, but it's called Here We Stand, and it's so appropriate that I say to you, let's stand to sing. Here we stand, the church of the redeemed, ransomed by the blood that sets us free. From the darkness brought into the light, enemies of God now His delight. From the depths, called to highest heights, here we stand, the church of the redeemed. We are His, precious in His sight. Here we stand, the church of the redeemed. Here we stand, contending for the faith, standing for the truth in every age. We are weak, but Jesus, He is strong. In the Spirit's power we labor on. And we know victory will be won. Here we stand, contending for the faith. And we know truth will overcome. Here we stand, the church of the redeemed. Here we stand, but here we don't belong, journeying toward our lasting home. Now we weep with weary saints who mourn, telling all the world the hope of dawn. Christ will come, all will be restored. We will stand, the church of the redeemed. We will wait, ready for our Lord. Here we stand, the church of the redeemed. Every heart overflows with praise when at last we stand before the throne with our King. Evermore will reign. Here we stand, the church of the redeemed. Okay, and we're going to continue with Christ is Enough for Me. Christ is my reward and all of my devotion. Now there's nothing in this world satisfied. Through every trial, my soul will sing, no turning back. I've been set free. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Christ, my all in all, the joy of my salvation. And this hope will never fail. Heaven is our home. Through every storm, my soul will sing, Jesus is here. To God be the glory. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back. No turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back. No turning back. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. 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 You may be seated.
Well, good morning to Kings Park Community Church. Thank you, Malcolm. Isn't it good to be here again on a Sunday? And I must say thank you, Justin. Justin started playing here with 2 fingers probably 2-3 years ago, and you can see how competent he is now. So isn't it good to see young people stepping up and doing stuff? Well done, mate. We're going to have our offering now. While we're doing the offering, we're going to watch a video from an advert for Reach Out conference that's coming up. If you're a member of our church, please feel free to give through this or through electronic giving. If you're a visitor, just let the bag go past, please. Thanks, Bella.
God is on a mission to be known and glorified to the ends of the earth. Jesus' last words were, "Go and make disciples of all nations." Christ made us to be his disciples, and he made us to go and make disciples. That's the purpose of the church. Reach Out aims to see all Christians passionately and effectively involved in his mission. So how are you involved in his mission?
I can't think of another place where you can come and see missionaries from all over the world coming back and sharing insights into their trips. So I think it's a great way to solidify your understanding of mission and what you want to do.
I remember getting here and just meeting all these people and being like, these are my people, like, these are my people.
Come and talk to people, like the way we learn is through stories. And so just come and be willing to listen and learn and hear people's stories and see if God sparks something in you.
And there are so many people who have been missionaries here and have seen it and done it and are willing to tell like the authentic story of what it is like to be a missionary.
It was the first time that we actually was able to see different reps and get to know different people and where they all work throughout the world.
I actually learned so much and I'm really glad I went because it was very like, whoa, I did not know that. And it gave me like a bit of reference because let's say if I'm in a situation, I have a semi-idea of how to address it. Just come for the food because, and wait, hang on, when you hear and see what's going on, it is gonna be crazy. You'll be like, what is going on? And so we're gonna bait you with food. The food was incredible, it really was. But being around people like this that just genuinely love Jesus, it's definitely faith bolstering.
Definitely give you that fire back if you're someone that's kind of like, I don't know where God wants me. Definitely, it helps spark the fire. It helps spark the fire back.
So thank you to Mary Batchelor. She's asked us to play that and part of our missions month that we've just had. And so if you have the opportunity to attend, it's a great weekend to go and be a part of that. It's up at Katoomba. A couple of other announcements, very important one. Sunday, September the 3rd is Father's Day. One person knows. The rest of you should know. It's an important day to remember. What's going on, Malcolm? So the rule of thumb we have here is that on those days, the opposite agenda or gender would bring food to share. So women and children, please bring a plate or something nice to share for morning tea to acknowledge the men in our church. So that's on the 3rd of September. Some other dates just to put away. The Hands and Feet this year are running a conference and a fundraiser. First time we've run a conference. The conference is called Loving People Conference, and it's about how do we help when we hand out food to people in our local churches, how do we help people connect into who we are and share our love for Christ with them. And so if you're a part of the Hands and Feet team, book that date in and come be a part of that. It's quite a fun day. And then the fundraiser dinner obviously is where we get together and we tell stories for an evening, and we try and raise some funds to support the work of Hands and Feet. So both those activities are on October 12. So if you're interested, please put that in your diary. Come and be a part of it. It's quite an exciting night. One other little announcement. We've been talking about evangelism. We've been talking about missions. We're going to run a pilot program in this church called My Friends. And so it's a 9-week course that helps us learn how to evangelise. Now, it's not about having a tool like 4 Spiritual Laws to go and share somebody. It's actually talking about a lifestyle change that we can implement that will help us share with Jesus. And so Tachili has shared the Hands and Feet model, where we talk about understanding where people are in their journey to God. How do we be present with people? How do we listen to people? How do we show mercy to people? And then how do we pray for people? And this course is a course prepared by Power to Change, and it actually uses the same principles. And we kind of went, oh, this is what we've been trying to tell people to do through Hands and Feet. So what we want to do is put together a group of people who are willing to do this as a pilot. It'll be 9 weeks. It'll cost you $20. And the idea is to have a group from the church assess this to see if we run it out across the church. So if you'd be keen to do that, it'll probably run on a Wednesday or Thursday night, depending on who wants to come. But let me know if you're interested, and we'll work out a time, and we'll get the guys from Campsie over here, and we'll run it 9 weeks, $20. If you're interested, come and see me, and we just want feedback from the church to see if we run this out through the church. Make sense? And it will probably be starting in 4 to 6 weeks' time. Let's take some time to pray. Father, we are here again today to encourage and be encouraged by one another as we live in your world. May we be fully aware of your heart and desires for each of us, that we may live each day in harmony with your will. Help us to show mercy by forgiving others, and may we continually be community builders and not causes of harm to others. Please provide to each of us the resources we need to honour your name as we live for you. I pray that we as a church may grow individually and together in our spiritual wisdom and our knowledge of you. May we as individuals and as a church be a light in this community, expressing your love to people around us. May we be people of love, faith and mercy as we showcase you by the way we live. Thank you that you're a listening God and for answering our prayers. And we thank you that Gary has a job, and I thank you for those who have been praying for him in that space. We pray for our government that you may influence the directions that they take us in as a nation, that people who follow you will have a voice that gets heard and have influence, so that we as a nation can honour your name. Today, as Chad teaches us from Exodus, may we have ears that hear and ears that see, so that we can learn and put into practice principles that help us honour your name. And we ask these things in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen. Today we're continuing on a series in Exodus. And so Chad's asked me to get you start thinking about what he's going to talk about. And so we're going to start thinking about great plans that have failed. So I'm going to show you a couple of pictures in a second, and then we're going to watch a quick video. But when we finish that, I'm going to ask you guys if you want to share of great plans that you know or have been a part of that might have failed. So have a bit of a think. Let's look at these pictures. Thanks, Bella. No PowerPoint? That was a great plan, wasn't it? Yeah, the plan went wrong. There it goes, straight away. No. There was the PowerPoint. All right, we won't do that then. So there's the first great plan that has failed. The two pictures I was going to show you was a young guy got a tattoo that he found on his dog, and he was very proud of this tattoo. But what the tattoo actually meant was the dog had been neutered. And so he's wearing this tattoo proudly, not knowing the significance of what had happened. The second picture I was going to show you was a Starbucks van, and the door was open, and so when you actually read Starbucks, the S ended up covering up, and he saw S-U-K-S, so it said sucks. And so great plan, sign written, didn't work. So now we're going to play a video, hopefully. And so this video is a guy called Larry who had wonderful plans, and we'll watch the video, and then we will... We hope.
The country got through its 206th birthday celebration in fairly good shape. The fireworks crowds were down somewhat in Washington and in New York, but St. Louis claimed the nation's biggest gathering, 2 million, along the banks of the Mississippi. There were, of course, foot races and turtle races and balloon races, but there was only one balloon trip like the one Larry Walters of North Hollywood took. Here's David Burrington.
Larry Walters had always dreamed of flying a balloon to a faraway place. So with help from a friend who taped these scenes, he rigged 42 weather balloons to a lawn chair and filled them with helium. Walters hoped to fly across the mountains to the Mojave Desert, staying in touch with a CB radio. Suddenly a cable broke and up he went with one emotion.
Fulfillment. I was on my way.
The first casualty, his glasses. They slipped overboard, leading to this radio transmission with his girlfriend.
I can see perfectly, don't worry. You copy, over.
I copy. Are you sure you're okay? There's trees up there. We can hear them. Are you okay?
I'm okay. I'm going through a thin fog layer, over. My altitude's 1,500 feet. See marine line right now.
So you can see marine line. So you're heading toward, oh my God, you're going towards the ocean already.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody down here says to cut it and get down now. Cut your balloons and come down now. Everyone wants you down now.
The balloon reached 16,000 feet, spotted by 2 astonished airline pilots. But the craft wasn't moving, so after nearly 2 hours, Walters shot out some balloons with a BB gun and came down fast over Long Beach, the only time he was frightened.
All I saw were rooftops and power lines. I thought to myself, my God, this is it. You know, please God, you know, don't let me get fried.
Today, Walters said he has no intention of going ballooning again. His first priority now is to sell the rights to his story.
Now, if you can believe this, he went and bought a deck chair from equivalent of Bunnings in the States, so he had no seat belts, he had nothing. And one of the questions they asked in interviews, were you worried about falling out? He said, no, I had it all planned. I had it set back so I could sit there at an angle. And his only way down was to shoot balloons so he could come down. So it ended up being a successful day for him. I think he ended up in courts over it. He probably made a lot of money off it. But he was supposed to sit there for half an hour before they released him, and they were going to let the airlines know that he was going to be going into the airline path. But the lines broke before that occurred, so he shot up before they expected and went to, as you said, 16,000 feet. If he had gone any higher, he wouldn't have been able to breathe. So he levelled out just where he could breathe. So interesting, eh? All right. I have a bit of a time for you to think. Does anybody else want to share or think of any time they've had great plans that haven't worked? Jono's got one.
I planned to be the Christian Studies teacher at Crestwood High School for several years. At the end of 1 year, I became the science teacher at Richard John Stangleton School.
Malcolm?
I think that the 1,000-year Reich was a good example of something that was planned that didn't work.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so Hitler, 1,000-year Reich, that lasted, what, 3 years? 5 years. Any other? Yes, Bella. Jane.
I thought when I got married and went to live in India that I was going to have my first child there. So, like, I carted cloth nappies to India and not realising that you can get very good towels there.
There, yes.
And I gave them all away and came home without a child 8 years later, and it was 8.5 years later before I had a child. So that was a big plan that
Didn't go right.
didn't go right.
Okay, thank you. That's very personal. Thank you. Anybody else got any plans that... I'm sorry for the guys on video, they can't hear this.
Okay, so when I was very young, I was at a swimming carnival and I decided to try out backstroke. First time ever, and so I just got into the pool and started swimming backstroke. Now the interesting thing was that the crowd started going wild as I was swimming. I was going, I am doing really well. And kept swimming as hard as I could. The crowd continued to go wild. And eventually I got to the end and I looked up where I was and I was exactly where I started.
All right, thank you for sharing. And we're just starting to get thinking because the message we're going to be talking about today will cover into that type of space. So you're now thinking that way. We're going to have Janine now come and do the Bible reading for us. And then Chad will come and speak to us. Thanks, Janine.
All right, good morning everyone. This morning's Bible reading is from Exodus chapter 5, verses 1 to 23 from the NIV. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord, that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Then they said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God, or he may strike us with plagues or with the sword." But the king of Egypt said, "Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labour? Get back to your work." Then Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you are stopping them from working." That same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and overseers in charge of the people: "You are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw. but require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy. That is why they are crying out, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Make the work harder for the people so that they keep working and pay no attention to lies. Then the slave drivers and the overseers went out and said to the people, this is what Pharaoh says, I will not give you any more straw. Go and get your own straw wherever you can find it, but your work will not be reduced at all. So the people scattered all over Egypt to gather stubble to use for straw. The slave drivers kept pressing them, saying, complete the work required of you for each day, just as when you had straw. And Pharaoh's slave drivers beat the Israelite overseers they had appointed, demanding, why haven't you met your quota of bricks yesterday or today as before? Then the Israelite overseers went and appealed to Pharaoh. Why have you treated your servants this way? Your servants are given no straw, yet we are told, make bricks. Your servants are being beaten, but the fault is with your own people. Pharaoh said, lazy, that's what you are, lazy. That is why you keep saying, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Now get to work. You will not be given any straw, yet you must produce your full quota of bricks. The Israelite overseers realised they were in trouble when they were told, you are not to reduce the number of bricks required of you for each day. When they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them, and they said, may the Lord look on you and judge you. You have made us obnoxious to Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. Moses returned to the Lord and said, why, Lord, why have you brought trouble on this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people, and you have not rescued your people at all.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you. And just by the way, if you feel like you've seen a lot of me lately, from the pulpit, it's because another great plan we had, which was at one stage, Rob was going to be preaching today, which I would have thoroughly enjoyed. But when he was scheduling his next treatment, they thought it would be at one time, but then it turned out to be another time. Just a reminder, we'll say hello to Rob, who no doubt will be seeing this at home, and keep praying for him as he goes through treatments and his energy levels dip and all of that. But yes, where is God when hopes fail? And we have high hopes that come crashing down. Where is God at that time? So on the screen, you can see another example. Anyone remember what this picture is about? Yeah, the Challenger shuttle. And so, there is that moment where you have that, Houston, we have liftoff kind of moment, and everything seems to be going. And then there was just this moment where, still visible with the naked eye, you realize that something was going wrong. And then slowly but surely, the tragedy starts setting in, that there has been a huge cost to human life. And high hopes have led to great disappointments. And last week, when we were reviewing the story of Moses, we remember that story when he was around 40 years old. He goes out, he realizes that his fellow Hebrews are being mistreated. He has been raised by Pharaoh's daughter and apparently felt like he had some authority, but we're told he looked this way and that, and when no one was looking, he kills this Egyptian slave driver and buries him in the sand. But then when he goes out and tries to mediate between two of his fellow Hebrews, they say, who made you ruler and judge between us? And they reject him, and now Pharaoh wants to kill him, so he flees to the land of Midian. And there he will be a shepherd in a foreign land for 40 years. Another example of a rescue attempt that seems to fail very badly. But then we're told at that moment, 40 years later, Moses is now around 80 years old, and he sees this burning bush. Basically, God's voice is coming from within the bush, and it's the voice of the Lord. Exodus 3, verse 7, the Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt.
I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers. I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land and into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. So this is sort of like the 2.0 version of salvation. The first attempt didn't work very well. This time God is sending him. And so we know that things are going to go much better. But Moses makes all of these excuses. First of all, he's saying, who am I to do this? And God says, well, I'll be with you. And he says, but who are you? If people ask, I am who I am. But what if people don't believe me? Well, I'll give you these signs and wonders, but I'm not a good speaker. Well, I'll put my words in your mouth. Yeah, Lord, please just send someone else. I'm not the right guy. But in the end, Moses is told, I saved you. Of all of the children of Israel, I saved you so that you could save others. So go. When God calls us, when he redeems us, when he saves us, we belong to him. Our lives are now in his hand. We're not just there to live carefree. We belong to him. And God said to Moses, go. And so then we have liftoff moment. The first thing that Moses needs to do is to go and meet with the Israelite leaders, the elders. So in chapter 4, verse 29, Moses and Aaron brought together all the elders of the Israelites, and Aaron told them everything the Lord had said to Moses. And he also performed the signs before the people, and they believed. And when they heard that the Lord was concerned about them and had seen their misery, they bowed down and worshiped. Houston, we have liftoff. This is good. The plan is going well. The elders believe. They are worshiping the same God that now Moses has worshiped at the burning bush, and everything seems to be going well. But then what happens? We find out that Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh, and afterwards Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, this is what the Lord, the God of the Israelites, says. Let my people go, so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, who is the Lord? Who is this I am, this Yahweh guy you're talking about? Who is he that I should obey him and let Israel go? I don't know him. I don't know the Lord. And so I will not let Israel go. This is the Houston, we have a problem moment. And so we are told that then Pharaoh decides to make the work of the Israelites even harder, if that were possible. So from chapter 5, verse 6, that same day Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and the overseers in charge of the people. You are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw. And it's kind of a brilliant plan, and I guess cruel rulers and dictators have done this a long time. Bring trouble upon the people, and then in times of trouble, people begin to complain. They turn in on one another when things are going hard. They look for someone to blame. And so Pharaoh's plan seems to work, and let the complaining begin. So first of all, Israel goes and complains to Pharaoh. So chapter 5, verse 15. Then the Israelite overseers went and appealed to Pharaoh. Why have you treated your servants this way? Your servants are given no straw, yet we are told, make bricks. Your servants are being beaten, but the fault is with your own people. And Pharaoh said, lazy. That's what you are, lazy. That's why you keep saying, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Now get to work. You will not be given any straw, and you must produce your full quota of bricks. You can see what he's doing. Oh, you guys, you apparently, you feel like life is so cruisy that you can go and take a 3-day journey out into the wilderness and hold this worship meeting and then, wander back in. You've got too much time on your hands. That's the way it appears to me. So if you've got so much time on your hands, well, then you gather your own straw, you make the bricks, you keep the quota up. So the next thing that's going to happen is that now the Israelite leaders are going to complain to Moses and to Aaron. When Israel's overseers left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them. And they said, "May the Lord look on you and judge you." These are the same men that all just worship together. "You have made us obnoxious to Pharaoh and his officials and have put a sword in their hand to kill us." In other words, all things were going well until you came along, and now everything is going so badly. Again, these are the same men who had just worshipped and praised God and seen God's wonders and put their hope, and now they have turned on one another. And I just wanted to make a general comment. It's not just about church people and church leaders. We probably see it most often with our governments. But as soon as things get hard, right? The economy tanks, we get hit with a pandemic, whatever the case is, fuel prices go up. Whose fault is it? We got to blame our leaders. If we just had different people in leadership, then everything in the world would be going right. We wouldn't have any, shortages of anything. There wouldn't be any famines in the land. There wouldn't be any pestilence. There wouldn't be any of these things. If we had the right people in government, if we had the right people in leadership, everything would be going just fine. So when things go wrong, what do? You complain about your leaders, whoever they may be. But if we are children of God, by all means, if the leaders are at fault, we should go and we should talk to our leaders. That goes without saying. But if we're believers in a sovereign God who rules over this world, when things go wrong, who is the first person that we should go and talk to? The person that we talk to is God. Hard times should drive us to prayer. And how often do difficult times drive us to turn in on one another and to grumble against one another and to talk badly about one another, as opposed to saying, things are hard, I better talk to God. And that's what Moses is going to do, but it's probably not the kindest and most gracious prayer that's ever been prayed. Moses is going to complain back to God. Chapter 5, verse 22. Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Why, Lord, have you brought trouble on this people?" Now it's God's fault. Not Pharaoh's fault. It's God's fault. "Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people, and you have not rescued this people at all." And it's another common thing. When things go wrong, is God to blame? God must be asleep. God must not care. God must have turned his back on us. We must have offended God in some way, because everything in our lives should always go well, right? That's God's plan. And the fact that there are these problems in the world, and the fact that there is curse, and the fact that there is pain in childbearing, and the fact that we, extract food from the ground by the sweat of our brow, and the fact that there is violence in the world, this is God's fault, right? It's not ours. Why have you brought this trouble on us, God? Is God to blame for our suffering and tragedy and injustice? But then God, the Lord, responds to Moses. This is at the beginning of chapter 6. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand, he will let them go. Because of my mighty hand, he will drive them out of the country." And one thing that becomes very clear, and it should have been clear back to Moses back at the burning bush when he said, "Who am I?" God says, "I will be with you." And now God is making it very clear to Moses, this was never going to be a leadership summit between Israel's leaders and Pharaoh. There was never going to be a negotiation here. I am the one who is going to bring them out, and I needed you to see this, so that no one would ever say, oh, Moses and Aaron went in and they were great diplomats and they did a great negotiation, and then Pharaoh listened, and that's all that we really needed was just some decent human negotiators. No, that's not at all. And we go back to Pharaoh's earlier statement. Who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. This story is really all about God making himself known. First of all, he made himself known to Moses in the burning bush. Moses said, who are you? What is your name? And he said, I am Yahweh. I am who I am, and I will show you who I am. And that's really what the next big passage is about, starting from chapter 6, verse 2. And I want you to listen for it. These statements, I am, that bookend either side of this passage, and then the I will. I am who I am, and I will now show you who I am. If God is going to become the Savior and Redeemer of the world, then the world will need to know who he is. And so this is how God responds. God also said to Moses, I am the Lord, Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob as God Almighty, but by my name, the Lord, Yahweh, I did not make myself fully known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, where they resided as foreigners. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore, say to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people. I will be your God. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. And I will bring you to a land I swore with uplifted hand to give to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am the Lord. I am who I am, and I will show you who I am, and I am about to show the world who knows nothing about me. I am this obscure God of the Hebrews. But if God is going to save the world, he needs to show the world who he is, and that's exactly what he is about to do. But look at the response. The Israelites are so disillusioned, even though Moses relayed this message to the Israelites, but on account of their broken spirit and their cruel oppression, they did not listen to him. Can you relate? Have you ever hit that point where you feel like God isn't there, God isn't listening, the plan is failing, where is he? And I'm just too discouraged anymore to believe. But the interesting thing here is that there is a part of the plan that Moses seems to have forgotten all about. And I'm going to take us back to Exodus chapter 3. Chapter 3, verse 19. God says to Moses, back at the burning bush, but I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand compels him. So I will stretch out my hand, and I will strike the Egyptians with all the wonders that I will perform among them, and after that he will let them go. Oh, I just thought I was meant to go in there and just say to him, let them go, and he was going to let them go. No, remember back at the bush I told you, he's not going to let them go unless I compel them. Pharaoh said, who is this guy? I've never heard of him. I'm going to make it known to Pharaoh. I'm going to make it known to the Egyptians. I'm going to make it known to the Israelites. In fact, by the time that you get ready to march into the land of Canaan will have heard who I am. If God is going to save the world, then the world needs to know who he is. And Josh is going to speak more about this next week when he covers the chapters that are about the plague. But I just want us to see now that there is this divine logic in this whole plan. I don't know if you have noticed, but at this stage of the game, Moses hasn't marched in and said, let my people go so that they can go off into the land of Canaan and you lose your workforce forever. In the ancient world, it's been said that probably the majority of the workforce of places like Egypt, right down through the Greco-Roman Empire, the major workforce were slaves. Some people say up to 50% or more. If you didn't live in a place where there was social welfare and all that, which of course none of them did, if you didn't have anything, then you indentured yourself to someone else. In fact, the word in Hebrew or in Greek in the Old Testament or the New Testament for servant and slave is exactly the same. To be very honest with you, the only difference between a slave and a servant is the master. If you were a Hebrew and a servant indentured himself to you because they had no money, God had set up a system where every 7 years you always had to let your slave go. But while they were under your care, you treated them like family. And if you mistreated them, then the same punishment you gave to them came back to you. In other words, the great evil in Israel would be if there were people on the streets begging for food. God's plan was if they have nothing, you take them into your home and they can exchange work for food. That's the way the system worked. If you served a master like Pharaoh, he just bought you and owned you and you were nothing, and he could beat you, he could kill you, you were property. And so at this stage, God isn't even saying to him, I'm asking you to release your whole workforce, a huge portion. The guys that are building your cities, I'm asking you to release them. He just says, I'm their God. I want them to go out in the wilderness and worship me. It's a reasonable request. And in fact, right up until plague number 9, God is still making the same request of Pharaoh. Nothing big. And in fact, when he begins to pour out his signs, you will see, he goes in pretty easy. When there's just this staff on the ground and the serpent, and then Moses' serpent swallows up Pharaoh's serpents. It hasn't cost anyone anything other than, whatever the magicians were using for their trick. And, as slowly but surely, most of these plagues that are coming early on, they're not causing any great disaster. But slowly but surely, God is going to ramp it up because the world needs to know that there are consequences to sin. And when everyone is happy and healthy, no one needs God. It is only when suddenly the world becomes difficult, then the world cries out, why is God doing this to us? Which is the right question to be asking. And so there is this divine logic in the whole thing. And we can then see through Pharaoh's hardened response that he is putting himself over God, and God is saying, I'm going to show you who is really in control here. Is it the king of Egypt, and is it the Egyptian empire that is ruling the world? Is it the US? Is it Russia? Is it China? Who is it? It's God. And I'm going to make it very clear. It's none of these human powers. By the time I'm finished, people will know that there is a sovereign God who rules the world. And if you need something, you go to him. You don't complain to your rulers and your leaders. And so in doing so, God, this obscure God of the Hebrews, is going to place himself on the map. He's going to place himself right in the center where everyone, the people of Israel, the people of Egypt, later the people of Canaan, everyone is going to know who I am is. And so I want to come back to this question, but where is God during these times of difficulty and grand disappointment. We've continued to reflect on the New Testament because we said that Jesus walked in the footsteps of Moses, or Moses in the footsteps of Jesus. And Jesus was born like Moses in difficult times, and Jesus was taken down into Egypt as a refugee. Jesus grew up in a poor family, and when Jesus turned up on the scene, it was like, who is this guy? Isn't this the carpenter's son? No one knew in the first century who is Jesus. It was just a common name. Same name we use today as Josh, who will preach to us next week. It's no one in particular. But by the time that Jesus was finished, the world was going to know who he is. And everyone deals with Jesus now. Not only the 2 billion people around the world that identify with him in some way, but if you were a Muslim, you need to know who Jesus is. If you were a Hindu, you need to know something about who Jesus is. No matter who you are, you know he's someone. He wasn't anything back in the first century, but he's placed himself in the center of history. Our entire history is dated from his birth. Whether you call it AD or BC or the common era, why did it become common? Oh, because of Jesus' birth. He's the center of everything. But at the end of his life, he's hanging on a cross, naked and stripped down and being persecuted and crying out in the words of his forefather David, my God, why have you forsaken me?" In a minute, Gary's going to come and help us reflect on this further, but I just want to say something in the words of the scriptures and also what other people have said before. When God lifted Jesus up on the cross, he placed the world at his feet. When God stretched out Christ's hands, he did so that Jesus could draw the whole world to himself. When Christ's blood was spilled, it was for the forgiveness of sins. When he was laid in a tomb, it was so that he could blow the doors off the gates of hell and death and defeat Satan forever and ever. At the point in time when Christ seemed most defeated, Christ was saving the world. Where is God during times of disappointment and frustration? Always on his throne and always seeking and saving the lost. We're going to sing a song of reflection, and then Gary is going to come and help us with communion.
When I read the theme for this week's sermon, I thought that there was only one song which really fitted for the final song for today, which is Blessed Be Your Name. So let's stand and sing. Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where your streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glory. sun is shining down on me, when the world is all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering, though there's pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. You give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. You may be seated.
When I've been asked by Chad to share a message for communion, and I was reading through the scripture portion for it, the chapters 5 and 6, I was thinking I should have done Moses' part and Chad should have done Jesus' part. In the communion, obviously, the message that we heard to link Jesus to our own lives, how you compare from each part of the word that you heard to the sacrifice that Jesus did on that cross. And the verse that I wish to share is from Hebrews. If we can bring up Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2 and 3. I'll read for you guys. Chapter 12, verse 2 and 3. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. I would even conclude where Chad finished with his powerful statement about the cross, Jesus, the hands that has been, like waiting for us to hug and call to his hands, and then like the tomb that it's been blown. But since I got time, 5 minutes, I would like to ponder on the message that we heard and also in comparison with Jesus. Yes, Jesus is a pioneer and perfecter of faith. If I look at the way that Jesus took the stress that he has to go through, even though he knows that he has to go through all this, his attitude vis-a-vis the attitude of Moses. I'm not underestimating the skills and the sacrifices that Moses did, but the attitude that Jesus took, or the attitude that he chose to take, is the one that we want to ponder upon. Yes, Moses disappointed when things gone wrong, but Jesus, though he knows that he has to go through that cross, though, like the word that I always, the human nature of Jesus, yes, I know, Lord, is there any way to get rid of this cup? Is there any way? But yet, it is your will. That's what the attitude that Jesus wanted to take. Since I'm a finance guy, I always wanted to take the AAA rating. His attitude is quite opposite to the way that we take certain things in our life. When the discouragement happened, or in the fail, when you know that God is back of me, and then God is going to do everything, and all of a sudden, the reaction of the human being, or the reaction that you will have from the opposition, and the opposite people, is fearful. You will not be able to stand. When you fail in doing something, and then when the discouragement storms in your life, and then the way that the attitude that how we take, that's what the attitude that Moses took. But Jesus' attitude was the surrendering, the obedience to the Father. And his actions, Moses, like how he acted. Simply, Jesus acted in a way by going to the cross, he completely surrendered. He completely surrendered. He knows that he has to go through this suffering. He knows also that the loved ones whom he really loved will just run away from him. From the suffering that he is going to face, he will not have anyone until those times that, whatever the times that all these disciples that they were with him, they will not be there. And also, God will not bring any armies of angels for him, and then he will be alone on the cross. But his actions were just obedience. And his focus, what was his focus or attention, was for all of us that he knows he is going to sit the right-hand side of the throne of the Father. And not only that, in the same way how Moses' intentions were to take these people to the Canaan, to the chosen land of the Lord, the plan, he clearly knows that he is going to do this, and he is doing this for all of our sake. And then yet, even though he is all-powerful, himself is God, but he just shown his skill of obedience, and then he has shown all the mercy on that cross, because his focus, not to the timely or momentarily the response or momentarily solution, like how Moses was attaining or trying to attain. For that particular moment, Moses was focusing on how I'm going to take these people out. But Jesus, since his focus is eternal Canaan, and he was on that cross, going through the stress, going through the difficult time, without any discouragement, without any disobedience, he surrendered to God. And also, Jesus' suffering reminds us tells us what the way that how we look for the overall or greater picture, the outcome, which outcome we are looking for. Jesus' outcome, the reason why I put that picture, that's a Mount of Transfiguration. Here we have God told about Moses. Moses is very faithful in an entire my household, but yet he couldn't enter into Canaan. Here we have Jesus did all that sacrifice, and he is the Canaan, and he is our eternity. And then on the Mount of Configuration, I always remember Jesus was the only way, not only to you and to me, regardless of whatever happened to me and you, Jesus is there to take us to that eternal Canaan. And then Moses was standing on this Mount of Configuration along with Jesus. Let us spend some time in open worship now. Just remember one thing. Regardless of whatever the tough time that Jesus went, unlike Moses, or unlike me and you, and again, I'm not underestimating the faithfulness of Moses, but as a human beings, we do have a limited foresight, or we look at certain things in certain way, to some extent only. But Jesus, unlike any of us, and unlike Moses, he has seen his focus was out there and on the eternal Canaan. Not only for himself, not only to sit beside the throne of God, for all of us. He has shown the obedience. He's shown that mercy on that cross, and then he is there waiting for all of us. Let's bow down, and then let us spend some time in open worship. And then Chad is bringing the mic, if anyone, so he will help you guys for all of us to hear.